Welcome to day 4 of Quest. Strap yourselves in and enjoy the presentations.
Who do you think you are? We've all heard this saying before, but usually it's used as an insult, right? But how I think of it is, who actually are you? Are you defined by your friends, your job, your hobbies, what you do, what you don't do, where you live, where you're from, how you talk, your opinions, your political views, your family? These are only some of the things people define us by, but these can't be the things that make us who we are. We're very complex beings, and identity is one of the most difficult and confusing parts of us as a species. Think about this. Are you the same person you think you are? Do other people affect who you are? Are you always the same person? From the time when you're just sperm in the egg of your mother, everything you are is mimicked from your parents, your grandparents, all your ancestors. What you look like, what diseases you're prone to, everything you are is the billions of generations before you at that moment. When you're born, that is when you start becoming your own person. Your base is your family. So what does family mean to you? Is it a man and a woman who are the same age and have the same and are the same race and have the same amount of money and have biological children together? Would you say a single mother and her child wouldn't be a complete family? What about adopted children? What about two orphans who grew up together? Family. Noun. A group consisting of parents and children living together in a household. 2. All the descendants of a common ancestor. Now, number 1 seems to be very outdated. Just parents and children? What about those two orphans I mentioned? Are they not family? And then it says living together in a household. Well, this is the most inaccurate part of the definition, because even the most stereotypical family has children who move out of the house at some point. Are they suddenly not family anymore? What about homeless people? Do they not have families? And I know many families who don't live together. Then number 2 is right and wrong. Number 2 is true in a biological sense. If you don't think of family as a sentimental thing, then yes, this is what family is. Family is the thing that makes you who you are when you're in that egg. But family means so much more, because psychologically, everyone needs someone to take care of them as a child. Even as a child. And this is supposed to be the role of a parent. But many people don't have this. Someone they can trust, someone that is there for them. Most people who don't have this are in a bad mental state, and most die before the age of 30. This is because if you don't have someone who has your back, then you have to have your own back. And then you can never let your guard down, and you're always in attack mode. To me, family means two things that sometimes merge and sometimes don't. There's your biological family, the people you see in your face when you look in the mirror, and then there's your real family, who take care of you and you take care of them. It's a human necessity to belong to a family. All my life, I've been making characters and drawing their family trees. It's an odd passion, I guess, but family is a characteristic everybody has, and it affects all of us. Sometimes I go as far as making 10 generations for a character. From doing this, I realized it got convoluted, and everyone in the world my family lived in ended up being related somehow. The same goes for us. Though our world is much bigger and much more convoluted, if you go far back enough, all of us are related somehow. The closest common ancestor to all human beings only lived a few thousand years ago. This means we're all 120th cousins. What if someone in your daily life is closely related to you? Will your great-grandchildren remember your name? The science that refers to all this family stuff is called genealogy. and someone who uses this science is called a genealogist. So a genealogist is someone who uses genealogy, and genealogy is a line of descent traced continuously from an ancestor. Basically, family and history merged. Genealogy is a pretty dry word for the chain that connects each of us to the past. We are all made up of our ancestors' lives. If your great-great-grandmother didn't survive that tsunami, you wouldn't be here today. On my mom's side, I'm from Utah, and most of my family is Mormon. In Mormonism, they keep your family documents in the church. And so my ancestry has always been available to me. I would spend hours flipping through my ancestors' lives. I know 6 generations of my family by heart, and I know my 5th cousins as well as my 1st. My family lives close together. We have unique traditions and family reunions, and this is probably one of the reasons I'm so interested in family. Though I know so much of my mother's side, I know absolutely zero, nothing, nada of my father's side. The reason I chose the subject of where and who me and other people come from is not because of the family I do know, but because of the family I don't know. You don't develop curiosity from what you know. It's the unknown that keeps you up at night. I've never known or met my father, and this is the reason and the curiosity that brought me to my project. Now, most people feel bad for me at this point. Well, don't. Seriously, there's no need for it. All I am is curious of what makes me me, genetically at least. Of course, someone I have never met does not affect who I am, even if they are my biological father. But someone I have never met may affect where I'm from. They may be where I get my height, my hair, my fingers, my toes. So because of this curiosity and this need to know and belong, I decided I would research my father's side and 3 other people's ancestry. Collecting documents is the longest step of researching ancestry. You already have to have a lot of information just to get started. I didn't realize this before, and it proved to be very difficult to research ancestry. So I had to shift. I had to change my project in the middle of Quest. And so I decided I would make art pieces for my same 3 volunteers and myself, symbolizing our unique families. Pock Percy. He's half English and half Scottish, and he grew up in Durham, England. The background of his art piece is a place he visited frequently in his childhood called Lacranza, and his tree is an oak tree like the one that everyone climbed in his town. When he was a kid, him and his siblings had mugs with animals on them, and his was a puffin. So that's why there's a puffin there. Ibu Esther. Ibu Esther is half from Utah, America, like me, and half from Zimbabwe, Africa. Her father's side of the art piece is a baobab tree with a starry night sky and cheetahs at the foot of the tree because her sisters ran track. On her mother's side of the art piece, it's a blue sky with white puffy clouds, and there's the tree and the bunnies beneath it represent her grandparents' backyard. Jazz. Jazz is from USA and has a wide variety of backgrounds. Her tree is a weeping willow, and she has many animals in her art piece, such as jaguars, chameleons, cats, a dog, a parrot, and a hedgehog. This is my art piece. The side with the shining sun, blue sky, mountains, and the dog is symbolizing my mother's side. And the burning, falling branches, night sky, desert ground, and one crow sitting on a burning branch symbolizes my father's side. I wasn't able to finish my 3 volunteers' art pieces, but I plan to continue working on them. I'd like to thank all my mentor teachers for helping me throughout the process. I would have given up without them. To my mom for always being there for me. To my friend Sophia for giving me my computer. Without it, I wouldn't have been able to do Quest or any schoolwork. To my volunteers for being a part of my project, my grandma for trying to collect the family documents, and the family of my volunteers for doing the same. Also, my fellow 8th graders for being my emotional support. As Bob Marley once said, if you know your history, then you know where you're coming from. Then you wouldn't have to ask me, who the heck do I think I am? So after everything I've said today, I'll ask you again, who do you think you are? Thank you. I feel like I need to do another take. I stuttered.
Hi, I'm Felipe Gonzalez, and I'm going to be turning skateboards into recycled furniture. The wood that is used for skateboards is maple trees, and maple trees generally come from the Great Lake region of North America. The average tree used for the production of a skateboard is 60 to 80 years old. That's as long as my grandmother has been alive. This skateboard took as long as a human's lifetime to grow. And plus, only 2 to 8 meters of the bottom of these 30 huge meter trees is the quality required to make a skateboard. IASC estimates more than 100,000 skateboards are manufactured every month. I took the time to think of all those skateboards and maple wood that was being thrown away, and I decided what I could do to decrease the amount of maple wood that was being thrown away. And I decided that if I took my old skateboards and my friends and all the skateboards I could find to make shelves, chairs, and rings and everything I could, would decrease it. And although it did not sound like it would make a huge impact, I thought it was a good idea. And I'm guessing that some of you are thinking why I decided to do this quest. Well, the reason why I decided to do this, because every time I got a new skateboard, I would break my old one, snap it, and I'd just throw it away. And I'd be wasting lots of wood. And I've done that about 48 times in the 4 long years I've been skating. But that's very different for professional skaters. They go through a skateboard in less than a week, which for me is really short time. So they waste 52 skateboards a year, 40 more skateboards than me. And that's not even counting all the skateboards that companies they mess up a little detail in making them, and they think, well, we can't use this, so they'll just throw it away and waste lots and lots of skateboards for that. The other reason that helped me find out what I wanted to do for my quest was the skating Jalan Jalan. A Jalan Jalan, as probably many of you know, is what we do in Green School at Wednesday for the first 4 hours of school. We'll go out and do something awesome that we love, like go skating, surfing, and we'll do lots of things in exchange of that, like pick up plastic at the beach or make rings out of old skateboards and stuff. So this Jalan Jalan with Pak Shannon in high school also helped me think a lot about what I should do for my quest. And it was when I reflected on this Jalan Jalan that I thought, well, I think I should get started on making the skateboards. So at first, when I wanted to get started on making the chairs, I just took some of my old skateboards that I had lying in my backyard and just started on making designs with my dad. What I used to make the designs was SketchUp and the help of my father. So we designed the chairs together, and I thought it was a really cool thing to do with my father because I learned lots about interior designing and how to use this designing program, and I learned a lot about what my father does as an architect for his job. And so as you can see here, what I used, one of my designs was the classic chair, just an airplane seat, and here was the chill seat, and here's like the classic airplane seat, a little different. And I thought it was really cool to make this because it was pretty simple, it was quick to make, and I don't know, I had lots of fun making it. And here, this one is the Barcelona seat. It's the same, I used the same structure, iron structure, as the famous one, and I thought this one was very functional and easy to make, so I liked them. To me, this was a really unique project because there are 11.8 million active skateboarders, and it is now becoming an Olympic sport, which for me is really cool, and I'm excited to see. And there's still not much research on the impact that skating does on the environment, and so I think this was raising lots of awareness. During my project, I mainly learned 3 things. 1 was how to make a chair, 2 was how to make a shelf, and 3 was that someone else's trash can become someone else's treasure. During my Quest project, I did not only learn things, but I faced a lot of challenges, mainly finding skateboards. That was definitely the biggest challenge of all. But my Quest opened my mind up in lots of ways and taught me lots of things that I didn't know. And I learned how to use computer programs, and I hope to continue with making these chairs in the future with any skateboards I can find. I think with care and creativity, we can all make the world a better place. I want to thank everyone who helped me with my Quest. Bye. Thank you. Okay.
All my life, people have told me to speak up or to stop being so quiet. But the thing is, I believe that activism doesn't just have to be done through speaking. 20 to 30% of the world's population are introverts. That's 1 out of every 3 people you see around you. And I would consider myself to be a part of this third of the world's population. But what does it really mean to be an introvert? Well, one thing's for sure. I'm very glad I'm not performing live to you, but that's mixed in with a tad bit of anxiety, although I am deeply saddened it had to be this way. And it's hard being an introvert, especially in this decade school system, where students are always forced to be in large groups and doing loud activities. Teachers are always told that they need to get the quiet student in class to speak up, but in reality, they don't. After all, we were given 2 ears and only 1 mouth, so we should listen twice as much as we should speak. And I want to help other introverts that want to be heard in a different way but don't know how. We all fall under something called the introvert-extrovert spectrum, and our place on the spectrum affects how we talk to people and how we make friends. Quiet, a book I read about the power of introversion, said that no one is to the either side of the spectrum. Some people are just simply in the middle of the two. Our place on the spectrum affects how we see the world. For example, an extrovert would much rather be in a large group of people, whether an introvert would rather be alone or in a smaller group of people. And then there are ambiverts, who are people that are mixed up in the middle. These people do crave attention, but also at times can get completely exhausted and need alone time. And I find it all so fascinating. Something that's unfair about being an introvert is that you can create a big following just out of being loud. Introverts get little attention and not enough recognition. But we need to understand that not everyone wants to speak as much as others. But why do introverts never speak? We do speak, just not in front of people we're not comfortable speaking in front of. And when we do, we only say the things that need to be said. There is so much pointless writing and speaking out there. But LGBT rights are something that needs to be said, and something that needs to be talked about, and there is so much that needs to be said. So that is why I'm going to be singing and talking to you about this issue today. To my surprise, there are many introverts out there that are incredibly inspiring. For example, Rosa Parks and Gandhi both never wanted to be loud or stand up, but they just stood up for what they thought was right, and in the process created an amazing name for themselves. J.K. Rowling and Vincent van Gogh were also introverts, but I especially relate to these people, because J.K. Rowling and Vincent van Gogh just made whatever it is they wanted and watched people enjoy it. And that is why I'm going to use songwriting as a way to spread awareness, specifically focusing on LGBT discrimination. Because we introverts need to value our skills, because activism needs us. And singing is one way we can spread awareness. So I'm going to use my passion to sing to talk about this issue. It has always been a passion of mine to sing when I was younger, and growing up has not diminished that passion. And if you think about it, music in general is an incredibly powerful thing. And there isn't a lot of things that bring people together. Sure, you could say food or family, but one thing we all understand is music. People relate to music. Music changed people's lives. Music is a universal language. Music brings people and even countries together. For example, the 13-string koto, typically heard in Japanese restaurants, came from China in the 13th to 14th century. It's similar to the harp, just played on its side. Two entirely different cultures can play this instrument, and they have an incredible passion to play, like I have my own passion for music. I've always known I wanted to spread awareness about things in different ways, but never knew it would be through songwriting. I tried many attempts at different things before I finally got through to songwriting. I tried writing books and creating art on things that people would see on a daily. And when I finally discovered songwriting, I wrote a song called Beautiful. Beautiful is about how the LGBT community isn't always accepted, especially at home and at schools where people are supposed to feel loved and wanted. And in the chorus, it changes more to how if we become more loving and accepting, they will feel more welcomed. But what does the LGBT acronym actually stand for? Well, it has many letters in it supporting all the different types of sexualities. But the most commonly used one is LGBTQIA, which stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, and asexual. But there are many others, such as non-binary and pansexual. LGBT discrimination is very noticeable in schools, the workspace, and in the streets. Even in Indonesia, the LGBT community is especially not sheltered by the law for discrimination. Studies show that LGBT students in America are 40% more likely to exhibit suicidal and depressive emotions. But it's not just America. It's Australia, Europe, Africa, everywhere. I want to change this. I want to create a snowball effect that will continue rolling through time, and more people will want to stand up and help. So let's talk about the history behind all this. Being part of the LGBT community dates back to as far as humans have been alive, but it's only been more expressed recently because people have become more accepting. but is still frowned upon in many countries. This negative stigma around sexuality started in the Victorian era, where all sexual acts were frowned upon unless you were trying to have a child. Speaking of history, Alan Turing, a computer scientist with a skill for code cracking, played a crucial role in deciphering messages, letting the Allies defeat the Nazis, shortening the war. Alan and his team shortened the war by 2 years, saving over 14 million lives. 2 years after the war, Alan was prosecuted for homosexuality because in that time it was a criminal act to be gay. 2 years after being imprisoned, he committed suicide 16 days before his 42nd birthday. This is not fair. This is inhumane. But the thing is, this kind of discrimination still happens to this day. For example, Donald Trump, the President of America, is trying to make it legal for you to be fired for being gay or transgender. LGBT rights activists in America are saying that this could destroy what minimal protection they have gained over the years. He is also trying to take it that one extra step further and ban transgender patients from COVID-19 treatment. Governments need to stop with their discrimination. We are all equal and deserve to be treated like it. Because the reason I chose this subject is because I believe in equality. I believe that we should all be treated equally. I didn't choose it because I don't think that the LGBT community isn't represented enough at Green School, but because I want to create music worldwide that will change people's mindsets. Now that I've given this speech without running off stage, I would like to remind all the introverts out there that there is now no reason for you not to stand up for what you believe in. You can write stories, you can graffiti messages onto the sides of buildings, because, trust me, it will make a difference to at least one person. And remember that you are not ignored, although it may feel like you are invisible at times. And before I leave you, I would like to give a big thank you to everyone that helped me get through this amazing journey. Thank you to my mentors, who gave me this amazing opportunity to stand up here and talk to you today. Thank you to my classmates, who made me feel supported and loved the whole way through. And my parents, who listened to my poems over and over again and helped me buy my first ukulele. Without any of these people, I wouldn't be up here talking to you today. As Alan Turing once said, sometimes it is the people that no one imagines anything of that do the things no one can imagine. Thank you.
I was born in Bali and grew up on this beautiful island surrounded by nature, mountains, and coastlines. My earliest childhood memory was crab hunting with my dad and being pushed into waves. This led me to develop a very strong passion for the ocean at a very young age, which still means a lot to me. At age 9, I joined Green School and was instantly attracted to the GS philosophy in nature and in sustainability, to which, as it turns out, has been a springboard for furthering my knowledge on the environmental issues. This led me to develop a very strong passion for the ocean at a very young age, which still means a lot to me. When I started brainstorming of what I might do for a project, I found it challenging to come up with an idea of how can I take my love of surfing and turn it into a meaningful presentation that would help reduce ocean waste, highlight the need for recycling ocean rubbish into a viable product. One day, after surfing, I came out of the water, and the only thing I could say was, anybody wants to guess? Sandals. I picked up a sandals and thought to myself, why are there so many sandals? And how did they get here? Every shape, size, color, I imagine they all had a story to tell of their own journey. From the bottom of someone's foot to the final discarding resting place on the beach. The thought of this stayed with me on my way home. And so begins my story. When I got home, intrigued, I decided to do some research. How many of you are wearing sandals right now? About 3 billion petroleum-based flip-flops are produced worldwide each year and eventually end up as a non-biodegradable product returning on beaches, oceans, and landfills. Now, think about it. 3 billion. That number is almost too big to fathom. And out of that 3 billion, only a very small percentage of it is being recycled. And the rest, well, goes to landfills, rivers, and oceans. Let's take a closer look at our favorite footwear choices for a moment. Its history and evolution. The Hamel sandals date back to Roman times. Back then, it was made from leather, which is a biodegradable product. Fast forward a couple thousand years, with the Industrial Revolution of the mid-18th century. Rubber became the preferred choice as it was factory made. It became a cheaper alternative. Sandals can come in a variety of materials, but usually they're made from polyurethane. So what does this mean for my project? Well, I did notice that surfboard deck pads are produced from unsustainable materials. And thought if I could recycle sandals, then at least it would cut down on the amount of new rubber being made. And if you could see that my deck pad is actually made from 100% recycled sandals, then a lot of you would ask about them. And this, in turn, would be a way to educate more people on the environmental issues facing our waterways. Now, you may ask, what is a deck pad and what is it used for? Well, surfers use deck pads as an extra grip on the tail of the board to increase their balance during critical maneuvers, especially airs. Which is sort of funny because 99% of surfers can't do airs. Deck pads have become popular around the 1980s and have become a standard part of surf equipment. A board without a deck pad is a rare sight these days. The very first step that I took to making an environmental surf deck pad was making a template. I didn't worry about where I could get the sandals because I knew where I could get lots, at the beach. So I started to find ways of how I could cut the sandals to minimize the weight of my deck pad. Then I came up with the perfect design to make it as characteristic and as original as I can. Once I'm happy with all the parts in my deck pad, I now could glue all of them together with my special glue. It's called G glue. G for G'day, yeah, special recipe. I wish I had it here to show you, but it's back in Bali. So I'll show you again later. So, summing up throughout the process, I feel like I've learned a lot. Probably the most important thing I learned from this is that nothing is impossible if you put your heart and soul into it. Challenging and rethinking are valuable lifelong lessons that enrich your growth. I also learned that although my deck pad got a lot of positive feedbacks, there are still a few tweaks and ideas that I would like to implement into future models. One idea I had would be to find an organic reusable materials to try. Perhaps making a deck pad from seaweed could be the solution. I'm really happy with my deck pad because I think it's pretty sick, and for pushing myself beyond what I thought I was capable of, especially since I got stuck in Australia for the last 3 months without anything but a phone to complete my work on. Working on a sustainable ocean product and helping protect our oceans has become a lifelong commitment of mine that I'll endeavor to live by and continue to live by. I would like to give a big thanks to my dad for always supporting me throughout this quest journey and getting me psyched in surfing when I was a grum. And to my mom for always pushing me even though I didn't feel like doing any work. She's always there. Thank you, Mom. And to all the quest teachers that helped me throughout this journey, especially Ibu Jackie with all helping out with my quest journey and quest work. So thank you.
Human rights are an integral part of our everyday lives. They matter for everyone. Just like adults, every child has rights. In November 1989, the United Nations established the rights of a child. All children have rights, regardless race, colour, sex, religion, political, other opinion, national, ethnic, social origin, property, disability, or birth. To put it simply, Cherie Blair, British barrister and lecturer writer married to Tony Blair, ex-Prime Minister, says, "If every child matters, every child has the right to a good start in life. If every child matters, every child has the right to be included, and that is so important for children with special needs." My name is Stella Klim. I am 14 years old, and I am grateful to be able to live a life without having to question any of my rights as a child. This is not so for children with disabilities, especially living in less privileged situations than mine. I was unaware of the difficulties facing basic human rights, let alone joy and fulfillment, until Ibu Steph and Ibu Ali raised my awareness through the Surfers of Diversity program. I love surfing and I love the beach, and I can't imagine my life without surf, sun, sand, friends, or worse, not being able to access those things and seeing people able-bodied doing what I could not. Take a second and consider this. Step out of your own perspective and think how a disabled person would feel if they were at the beach. The obstacles and challenges are huge. I, for one, did not consider how someone with autism would struggle with all the different stimuli there, or how a wheelchair would get over the sand, or how they would even get to the beach, or know of the beach as a possibility. A year ago, Ibu Steph and Ibu Ali showed us a video of surfing with kids with autism. It blew me away. It seems so unreal to see these kids do something with so many obstacles that I love so much. I began looking into why surfing is such an incredible, safe, fun opportunity for these children. I read articles, watched movies, but one article really resonated with me. It was called Riding the Waves by Amanda Stolf. The article told how surfing with kids with autism really improves their social skills, gives them an opportunity that they can engage in a passion and develop relationships. Kids with special needs find it hard to create and keep relationships. Surfing is an activity that can be shared and enjoyed with others. Participating, cheering each other on, finding a sense of love, passion, achievement, and most of all, shared joy can be found in surfing. Riding the waves really made me think, and how I wondered how I could make this experience a reality for the children I work with at Matahari Turbot Centre. In Bali, there's approximately 60,000 disabled people, yet only a handful of schools cater to young children with mental and physical disabilities. The Matahari Turbot Centre was created to fill the void and create a safe, fun, supportive classroom environment, free of charge for children living in that community. This amazing school runs on donations and volunteers. They offer educational programs for children under the age of 16 who have a disability. The school works with children's individual talents of the students to provide programs that promote self-confidence, increase mobility, and provide support for families. Students taking the Surfers with Diversity program, including myself, began visiting the centre in August 2019, creating connections with these amazing kids that continue to this day. We enjoy each other's company. We play games, swim in the pool, and draw and have fun. The first time walking into this class, it made me feel so welcome. What grabbed my attention is when I saw these big brown eyes peeping out from behind the door. This little girl came out and slowly approached me. I got down on my knees and started to introduce myself. From that moment on, I felt like I made a big connection with this little girl named Lovely. We did everything together and she stayed by my side. She really made me think and how I could keep on going with this amazing experience. Watching them take everything in was like a dream come true. Some were all scared, but they all embraced this new experience with wonder and curiosity. Seeing their smiles spread from ear to ear as they rushed headlong into the water was my reward for making this happen. It made my heart smile. I want to leave you here with this thought today. Are you willing to share a passion or give an opportunity to someone who does not have these opportunities in life that we can bring? If you are, you'll find that that gift that you have given brings so much joy. Sometimes it's the giving that we find happiness, and seeing these kids do what we did was so rewarding. If you're willing to learn more or find different ways you can help, don't hesitate to approach me. I want to thank the entire Quest team and everyone that went on this journey with me, Ibu Alma, Pokjuba, and Ibu Steph, for being with me every time I was with the kids. And I want to thank the audience for listening to me with open hearts. Thank you.
What do you think of when you see this? Do you automatically associate the symbol with the Nazis? With violence, brutality, genocide? Or do you think about the symbol that it was for thousands of years before? The symbol of peace, well-being, hope. Of course, there is no wrong answer, because the swastika is both of these things. If you think about it, very few things in the world can have such a powerful impact and stand for both good and evil. It's amazing how many people pray towards it, and from another point of view, how many people are disgusted just by the sight of it. But one thing's for sure, it is not only one of the most powerful symbols in the world, it is also one of the most complex. Growing up traveling through many different cultures from a young age, I understood the positive meaning of the swastika before I knew the way that the Western culture saw it. And by being a part of that minority of Western children who see the symbol from the opposite viewpoint, I've come to realize just how controversial it is. Now, I can understand both sides and reasons behind the love and the hate of the swastika, as well as explain the importance of it. Most of us don't know just how old and dispersed the symbol is. It has been, and still is, used in so many places. In India, Indonesia, and Japan, the swastika is used for religious and spiritual reasons. It has been used for centuries by Hindus, Buddhists, and Jains. And in ancient Sanskrit, swastika means happiness and prosperity. But, opposed to what you may think, this symbol is not just confined to Asia. Artifacts have been found in Native American culture and even in ancient Europe. It was woven and beaded into carpets and other decorative items by the Native Americans. It was found on ancient pottery in the lost city of Troy, which is in modern-day Turkey. And it was even found engraved on an ancient spearhead in Germany. More towards modern times, believe it or not, the swastika was used by Girl Scouts in the US. It was put on the cover of the Girls Club Handbook, along with many other magazines. The symbol was found on a plane in the US Army, and a giant swastika was built on the Corn Palace in South Dakota as a symbol of good luck. For me, it was mind-blowing to discover that the swastika was used in the Western world within just a few years of when it was appropriated by Hitler, and the concept of it to much of the world was brutally hijacked. Before I continue, I would like to acknowledge just how difficult a subject this is to do a project on. Coming into Quest with this topic, I expected it was going to be hard. I expected surprised and nervous faces, and it could have been very difficult for me to find someone as cooperative as the people who helped me. So, I would like to quickly say thank you to everyone who helped me during the making of this project. You really made a difference. I would also like to say that I'm sorry if I hurt or offend anybody by not giving this hugely complex and sensitive issue the careful attention it deserves. It was not my intention. I interviewed Stephen Heller, a graphic designer at the School of Visual Arts in New York City and author of the book, The Swastika, Symbol Beyond Redemption. And I asked him a few questions. One of the questions was about whether or not he thought that children should be educated on topics like this in school. This was his answer. Children learn language. Symbols are a visual language. The swastika is a major part of language studies. When we think about language, we often think about words, but we typically don't consider visual language. Symbols are a universal language. One symbol can mean so many things and make such a big impact on the world. Without the need for words, we can automatically translate a symbol into what it means and stands for. And we do this all the time, from religious to patriotic and consumer culture. When we see popular worldwide symbols, many of them go through all of our minds defined as the same thing, regardless of what verbal language we speak. How then should we, as progressive people in the 21st century, understand the swastika? Well, that's a hugely complex question without a simple answer. But one large step that we can take to move further in that direction is being culturally relative. We need to be conscious of the fact that different cultures view things from different angles. And by understanding their viewpoints, we can further understand their culture. This year, there has been discussion about removing the Japanese swastika, called the manji, from tourist maps for the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. When looking at many tourist maps in Japan, the manji is placed where the Buddhist temples are. In my opinion, Japan should not have to alter their culture to soothe people who aren't comfortable with a piece of their society. However, I understand that others may have different opinions. Many people in Korea aren't bothered at all by the Japanese swastika on the maps, but they are extremely upset that the Japanese imperial rising sun flag was not banned from being waved at the Olympics because of their colonial crimes using it. This just comes to show how different symbols mean extremely different things to other cultures. Symbols are a great way for us to acknowledge the way that our understanding of the world is defined by our culture and experiences. Let me give you an example. This symbol is significant to many of us. It may represent school, friends, work, community, or many other things. But to others outside of the Green School community, it's meaningless. These two symbols may mean nothing to you, but to the Ashanti people in modern-day Ghana, they represent the power of God and perseverance. It's greatly important to educate people on topics like this that they don't fully understand, so that they can have an educated opinion. I hope that one day in the future, most people will be able to perceive both angles of the swastika. And I also hope that others can share the knowledge that they already have to change the blind lens that people see this through. We must always acknowledge the Nazi swastika as a symbol of hate. And in no way am I trying to diminish that. But someone shifted one of the most beautiful historical symbols into what many view today as a symbol of hate. And it must also be acknowledged in its original form. So that's what I'm challenging you to do. I would like you to educate others on how the swastika has other meanings. And not just that, there are so many other things that we don't fully understand, that we don't even notice. In the words of Stephen Heller, don't be blind to things in plain sight. And the next time you see a symbol, out of the hundreds you see every day, maybe you can stop to think how your interpretation is affected by your own worldview and upbringing, and how so many symbols around the world exist, like the swastika, between love and hate. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Esme Zario, and this is my quest. An orphan is a child whose parents have died, are unknown, or have permanently abandoned them. There are 153 million orphans worldwide. Now that's a huge number, almost too big to comprehend. But I want to focus on our host country, Indonesia. There are 66 million children living in Indonesia ages 14 and under. 4.4 million of those are orphans. To put it simply, 1 in every 14 children is an orphan. I've grown up with a life full of opportunity, full of wonderful possibilities. I can't imagine how my life would be without such privilege. But I want you to imagine a life not full of chances. It's very hard to do actually, and requires empathy, which I will talk more about later. We take our lived experiences for granted. We can't be blamed for that because if it weren't for all our lived experiences, we wouldn't be who we are today. So we can never truly understand what it means to be someone else. But it is so important that we try. I believe that empathy is one of the most powerful forces in the world. Empathy is a very important skill in life. The definition of empathy is the ability to understand and share feelings of another so we can respond appropriately to the situation. It is typically associated with social behavior, and there is lots of research showing that greater empathy can lead to more helping behavior. For my quest, I wanted to develop my own sense of empathy, which is something I've struggled with, being the youngest of 5 and always having to be fight to be heard or even listened to. So I wanted to start by helping people find their passion, find connections. Last year, I visited the Seeds of Hope Children's Orphanage with my family. I felt like I created a bond. Seeing their smiling faces just had my emotions rushing through me. But I knew that my one-time visit, although it made me feel happy and the kids felt happy, there was no lasting impact. I wanted to change that. I wanted to give them the chance to experience the feelings I felt the first time I rode a horse. I've been horse riding ever since I was 5 years old. When I came to Bali, I started training seriously. After a rough day at school, I would come home and go straight to the horses. There was a particular period of time when I felt isolated and alone and was struggling with friendships. I would seek the comfort in the company of horses. When I ride, I see the love in the horse's eyes and the feeling of freedom I get from being with them. I started thinking back to the orphans I'd met the year before. I was wondering what if the kids were craving that feeling but couldn't quite reach it. I wanted to give them the chance to experience the feelings I felt the first time I rode a horse. Give them another safe place, another place to be themselves and not be judged. In an article I read about equine therapy, it stated that equine therapy is a powerfully effective tool in assisting clients who are fearful, anxious, depressed, angry, or have a variety of other emotional problems. It goes without saying that these children have emotional issues, and maybe horse riding could help provide a momentary freedom from those things. Jody Clark, who is a counselor, stated in an article that equine-facilitated psychotherapy is just as successful as conventional therapies in treating kids and adults with trauma, anxiety, depression, PTSD, and more. Equine therapy offers them a therapeutic environment that can feel less threatening than a traditional talk office. I wanted to make it happen, and I had to start now. My first step was to think of the logistics of it. How would I raise the money? How could I be sure the kids would enjoy it? And how would it continue after I left? My most pressing concern was that it continued after I left Bali. Otherwise, it would have just been another fleeting moment. I hoped that maybe if I raised enough money, the kids could keep riding even after I left Bali. My first step was to talk to the orphanage. They were, after all, the integral part of my quest. I started talking to Ibuoka, who was in charge, but I found it difficult to express the feelings I wanted the kids to feel. I was hoping she would understand what I wanted to get across. So with the use of my hand gestures and emoting, I got there in the end. With this in place, I needed to speak to the owner of the stables. I was quite confident that she would embrace the idea. As I was explaining my idea to Esther, the owner, I could see she was really enjoying my idea. So much so that she decided she would sponsor one child to ride with me on a weekly basis. With this in place, my plan was taking shape. On Saturday afternoons, I would go with the driver and pick up the 3 children that had been selected by the orphanage. We would then travel to the stables together, and I showed them how everything worked and set them up for the ride. One of the girls' names was Ina. Ina had told me she'd owned a horse back in Sumba. I could see she was very familiar with horses. I had noticed over time, however, Ina seemed sad. I thought that being with the horses, or even being around horses, could be making her, reminded her of her home back in Sumba, and this could be causing her pain. However, with time, I saw change. Ina seemed to be more excited when she got to the stables, and eventually she had the biggest smile I've ever seen while riding a horse. I am so grateful for this experience. It has opened up a side to me that I rarely see. I felt empowered by the fact I was able to organize and coordinate something so meaningful to me, which allowed me to share my passion for horse riding with children. I leave Bali knowing that Ina continues to ride once a week. I know I helped her overcome her initial problems at the stable, and it makes me very proud to have made a tiny difference to her life. Now, back to empathy. I just wanted to remind you of its definition. The definition of empathy is the ability to understand and share feelings of another. I will carry this experience in my heart, and a little bit of Ina too. Thank you. I also want to give a huge thanks to the people who helped me. My parents, Ibu Oka, Esther, Pak Dave, Pak Lance, and Ibu Nicola. And of course, the children at the Seeds of Hope. Thank you.
Imagine a place for kids and families to come together outside and have fun. A beautiful green space that uses alternative materials, collects and recycles rainwater, and sequesters carbon dioxide. A place that gives trees a second chance at life. An ecosystem that is mostly self-sustainable and invites wildlife to thrive. A place that attracts people with its art installations and opportunities for recreation. Believe it or not, these are the ideas that separate your traditional boring skate park from the skate park of the future. I am passionate about skating because it's fun and it's great exercise. It gives me an outlet to express creativity, improve balance, and develop perseverance and courage. Skating is an activity that teaches you to fall and get right back up. It's going to happen a lot. Learning advanced tricks take long, grueling hours that you can't learn any other way than messing up, over and over and over again. It is a very physically demanding sport that deserves respect. Ask anyone who has put a lot of hours of work into something, and they will agree that there are not many things that match the satisfaction of getting a new trick learned or a new time recorded. Unfortunately, skating today has two main problems. First, let's face it, skate parks can be ugly and hot. They are not green spaces and they are not environmentally friendly. Many of them are just big concrete blocks and cities don't want to put them in. Secondly, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of a typical skater? And by skater, I mean someone who rides BMX bikes, rollerblades, scooters, or skateboards. Is it a kid that skips school? Vandals? Troublemakers? These are stereotypes. I want to help the massive skater community get a better rap. I have a vision for a park that solves these problems. It is sustainable, eco, and family friendly. And it might just help improve the image people have about the skateboarding community. The inspiration for this idea came when my family took a trip to Malaysia. We went to a super cool amusement park that was half ropes and obstacle course and half water park called Escape. It was awesome. But what made Escape special was its many architectural elements and details that made it much more sustainable than your average amusement park. I had the opportunity of researching their environmental initiative, where they have records of their continuous ongoing efforts to make Escape eco-friendly. For example, they have a tree adoption program, where if a construction site doesn't want a tree, instead of cutting it down, it will be relocated to Escape and it will be planted there. They also use solar power to run their facilities. They cool down buildings naturally without aircon by planting garden beds on the roofs of their buildings, where they also collect rainwater. While reading this environmental initiative, all I could think about was how they managed to combine such an awesome amusement park with such sustainable thinking in mind while building it. Then, probably not by coincidence, my family chose to move into the Eco Village in Ubud, where the houses are made from mud and do not use concrete. This is another example of building with sustainability in mind. The house we moved into is owned by the builder of Eco Village, Greg Lloyd, who's both a passionate skater and has built many skate parks in Australia that have won multiple awards. Due to his interesting career, he was able to share with me many ideas that would fit great into a sustainable, eco, and family-friendly skate park. In the case of Southeast Asia, let's talk bamboo. Both our school and my personal villa are built from a lot of bamboo, which has massive benefits for the planet. Due to its light weight and elasticity, bamboo is a popular building material in parts of the world where hurricanes, earthquakes, and typhoons happen frequently. When bamboo is cut, as long as the roots are not damaged, bamboo will grow back very fast. Certain species of bamboo can grow 910 millimeters, or 36 inches, within just 24 hours. Bamboo also absorbs carbon dioxide and releases over 30% more oxygen into the atmosphere compared to an equivalent mass of trees. In parts of the world where bamboo is not available, you could also use recycled wood instead of cutting down trees. This wood could also be used to create furniture, benches, light fixtures, and signs. The highest expense in my skate park is energy, so let's talk solar. Solar panels are able to harness the energy from the sun and convert it into electricity. We all know that this is a great alternative to fossil fuels. It is renewable at no incremental cost and can supply energy infinitely. But it has always been very expensive to install solar panels. Luckily, the price to install solar panels has come down 89% since 2010 and will continue to decrease. Solar can be used to run all electrical facilities in the park during the day, including a Wi-Fi enabled workspace for parents. Next, let's think about cement, or concrete. Skate parks are primarily built out of a very specific type of concrete that is hard and durable, perfect for skating. But concrete absorbs heat, making skaters much more hotter and worn out quicker. Concrete is great for creating hard surfaces, but it causes damage to the most fertile layer on Earth, the topsoil. It also contributes to surface runoff, which can lead to soil erosion, water pollution, and flooding. It also causes a lot of damage to our coastal ecosystems due to the mass collection of sand needed to make concrete. Did you know that the cement industry is the 5th biggest producer of carbon dioxide, a potent greenhouse gas, in the world? The good news is, there's green cement. Green cement is a new alternative to cement that releases less CO2 into the atmosphere when it's drying. Green cement is made by incorporating and optimizing recycled materials and reducing the consumption of natural raw materials like water and energy, resulting in a much more sustainable construction material for skate parks. Metal coping, the material that rails are made out of in skate parks, is another detailed design with room for improvement. Steel is the best metal because of its strength. The most sustainable option would be to use recycled steel. They could get from maybe an old shipping container or a demolition site. There's a lack of alternatives that can hold up as well and provide the same results, but maybe this is something for an engineer to start working on in the future. The landscaping of any park can make or break it. And a skate park should be more than just a concrete bowl. So let's really integrate nature into it. Nature is self-sustainable. So the closer the park gets to being like an ecosystem, the more self-sustainable it will be. So first off, we need natural shade and cooling provided by trees. We could implement plants into the park that repel mosquitoes like citronella, lemon balm, and catnip. We could produce edible fruit for the people at the park, like apples, oranges, and mangoes. We could add planter boxes to create sort of a permaculture environment, or a community garden that attracts wildlife. The park could include a pond with plants growing and fish to eat the mosquito and bug larvae on the surface. You could terraform higher areas that roll down into lower areas, or you could terraform lower areas to collect rainwater. Speaking of rainwater, one of the most important things for any park to consider is how to collect rainwater. If you think about it, a skate park is already a perfect place to collect rainwater due to its natural curvature and shape. You can then filter it into a free source of drinking water at the park. You could pump it into a water fountain for kids to run around and play in. Or you could recycle it for the sinks and toilets. You will also need to conserve and capture some rainwater to take care of landscaping. So far I've shared some ideas to make a skate park more sustainable and put the park back in skate park. The skate park of the future should be a fun, green, sustainable park with awesome skating features. Areas for both advanced, high-level skaters and more simplistic areas for newer skaters. A place where crowds can gather, like a giant stair set, where more advanced skaters can do big tricks that get a massive wow factor from the audience. But how do we get an audience to the skate park? And how do we get communities and towns to want something like this implemented into their community? The ideal skate park would have features for everyone. I've always noticed how the Balinese people have a very strong sense of community. They're like one giant family. They have places where they work together and spend time together. They always help each other out. With the right kind of park, we can bring a community together and help form additional community from the local skaters living in the area. The trick is to include features for everyone, such as an outdoor gym, a giant chessboard, a cornhole game, and a volleyball net. You should include park benches and swings and walking paths for people of all ages. These are things people like and are not costly to put in. A park like this can improve the quality of people's lives, and not just skaters. It can help real estate values go up, build community, and it might just help improve people's opinions on the skating community. Speaking of which, one final idea. While spending my time at Green School, I took a Jalan Jalan class called Green Skate Movement, where we as skaters, once a week, would go out and do a trash walk, followed by a session of skating. This is something that should and could be implemented into my skate park. Not only would this give an outlet for skaters to give back to the community, this might also help improve the reputation skaters have. Skaters who participate could win early access into the park on weekends or other special benefits. My vision is a place that brings people, their hobbies, and nature together in one big, beautiful green space, with skating at its center. A place where people feel part of a community that cares about each other and the environment. A place for skating and recreation in nature. This is what I want, but most importantly, this is what our communities need. So imagine with me, the skate park of the future. As you and your family walk in, you see a green oasis filled with kids and families. The sun is shining, and there's a new sculpture on display by a local artist. Kids and parents are running around exercising and playing games and sports. The benches are filled with people of all ages. Your dad goes off to the parents' workspace. Your mom takes your younger sibling to the water fountain to play. The next oldest child goes off to the playground. And you cruise off to the skate park. Can you imagine that? Thank you.
A step, the thing that our lives start with, the thing that makes us who we are. But what happens before the step? 68% of high school students, just in the US, do not participate in physical education programs. One new study out of the University of Illinois shows a link between sections of gray matter within the brain associated with maturity and fitness. The more fit kids in the study showed less gray matter within the brain and satisfyingly higher brain maturity. While studies like this one certainly enforce the need for regular recess in PE, the evidence also shows that movement should be a regular part of the learning process. When kids move, they feel energized, alert, and happy, and now we know it is making their brains operate more maturely and efficiently. When you are born, you already have a sense of curiosity, and most kids explore this curiosity by crawling and moving on the floor. Imagine never being able to move the way you want to in your learning environment. When a baby moves on the floor, the baby is strengthening different parts of their brain that most adults lose control of. Imagine the amount of things that these kids could grow up to be. These kids could grow up to be the next Usain Bolt or the next Serena Williams. In this new day and age, for the first 6 or 7 months, babies are moved from their car seat to their crib and back again. They have never even touched the floor in this time of their lives, and it is all because adults are scared of what might happen to them if they put them on the floor. This whole time, the baby is losing connection to its environment. What would this world be like if these same adults thought of what good it would do their children to have them move on the floor instead of thinking of what might happen? Schools do not provide enough movement for kids as young as 6, and this is a huge problem within our society. Among dozens and dozens of teaching styles, there is one common thread. That is that there is not enough movement in our learning society. To be able to help your kids be more connected to their environment, you can encourage your children to move in a natural way so they have less stress on their feet and all of their muscles take the load off, moving through the environment surrounding them. We used to have to stalk deer, bear, elk, and many other animals that are scared away easily, so we had to move through the environment in a way that is easy and effective. Not a lot of people know about how much movement can help you, and moving in a natural way is really important for the development of your brain and muscles. I am here to change that. This is why, for my quest, I went to a local school here in Bali, Indonesia, and talked to a principal about what sports equipment they needed. With this new information, I started a basketball tournament for Green School students, parents, and teachers. I charged 40,000 IDR for anyone who would come. With the proceeds I got from the basketball tournament, I gave the school the sports equipment that they had requested at the beginning of my project. Or at least this is what I wanted to do. But now with our current situation, it is difficult because I am on the opposite side of the globe. What is ancestral movement? Ancestral movement is an approach to embodied practice aimed at radically transforming and expanding the sense of self, exploring and rediscovering patterns of movement and awareness that are part of our species' history, both recent and ancient. Through this practice, we aim to recover strength, agility, balance, grace, joy, ease of movement, relaxation, and quiet mind that are our birthright as human beings. To rehabilitate old injuries, to prevent new ones, to make ourselves and our families and friends happy and peaceful, to come back home to our senses, our bodies, our communities, and our place in relationship to the rest of the living world. The sedentary lifestyle is a lifestyle of living where there is little to no physical activity in your daily life. We, in this new day and age, are continuing to move into a sedentary lifestyle. Meanwhile, there are people in this world that are actually trying to change what they are doing to move away from this sedentary lifestyle. And this small amount of people that are doing this are people that we should want to be like. Research has shown that physical activity, including exercise and sports, can help reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and early death. In 1994, Dr. Sullivan said, "Why do we persist to be stuck in this lifestyle when the evidence that we have alone does not cut it?" This is why, for my quest, I made a sports tournament to not only bring our community together, but to help people understand how important movement is for your health. This is not the way schools should treat children. For example, kids are being taught to sit and listen without interruption. Why should we be concerned? Because in the same way that exercise shapes up the heart muscles, lungs, and bones, it also strengthens some very important parts of the brain, and movement is the only way to exercise these parts of your brain. When you don't exercise these parts of your brain, then you lose these parts of your thinking. This is why, during my quest, I knew we as humans can do better, but we are not, and we won't, and I am here to change that. When I first went into school, I came home every day being tired from sitting in class for 6 hours every day. One day I asked my mom to take me to a pond to play hockey for a few hours. I ended up staying there for almost 7 hours. During the 6 months I was in school, before my parents took me out, I was tired a lot of the time, and it wasn't because I was playing too many sports, but the exact opposite. I was coming home from school saying I was tired from sitting through too many classes. Schools do not provide enough movement for kids as young as 6, and this is a huge problem within our society. When you're born, you have hundreds of movements, and when you're an adult, you only have around 50. It is scientifically proven that people who practice ancestral movement learn better and have better overall health. Asking young students to sit still, listen, focus, complete assignments, not talk, and enjoy learning all at the same time is unacceptable. Thankfully, our education is shifting, making our school environment more blended, differentiated in culture, and project-based. One aspect of learning is movement, physical activity, wiggling, the act of simply getting students up and out of their chairs. Research shows that the brain actually lights up differently after a short episode of movement, and neural pathways are more speedy and efficient amongst fit kids. We as humans are meant to be connected to nature. The reason why most people are disconnected to their environment is all because of years of schools lacking movement in the student's daily life. I am here on this stage today to change that. Harvard University did a study for people with attention deficit disorder. This study showed that a single 20 minutes of movement improved their symptoms briefly. And what if we could do this for everyone with ADHD? It's truly amazing that we could be doing this, but instead we are putting people with mental disabilities in mental institutes instead of helping them through these difficulties. A major new study done by Harvard University has confirmed that they discovered regular physical activity improves mental health. In an analysis of data for over 1.2 million U.S. adults, subjects reported an average of almost 3.4 days of poor health in the past month. The researchers asked study participants about depression, stress, and emotional problems. However, those who exercised struggled 1.few days fewer a month, a 43.2% decrease in mental health burden. The study found that team sports had the strongest effect on mood, lowering the mental health burden by more than 22%. This may be due to the sociality of structured team sports, says the first author, Sami Chakraud, a PhD student from the Oxford Centre of Human Brain Activity, part of the Wellcome Centre of Integrative Neuroimaging in Oxford. Given feelings of isolation, loneliness, that are often expressed by individuals with mood disorders, it's possible that structured exercise with other individuals helps to improve prosociality and reduces some of the symptoms of low mood. He explains, cycling, aerobic, and gym activity also reduces the mental health burden by more than 20%. Frederick Groves, in his book Philosophy of Walking, none of your knowledge, your reading, your connections will be of any use here. 2 legs suffice, and a big eye to see with. Walk alone, across mountains or through forests. You are nobody to the hills or the thick boughs heavy with greenery, but a body that feels sharp stones on the paths, the caress of long grass, and the freshness of the wind. When you walk, the world has neither present nor future, nothing but the cycle of mornings and evenings, always the same thing to do all day, walk. But the walker who marvels while walking, the blue of the rocks in the July evening light, the silvery green of the olive leaves, has no past, no plans, no experience. He has within him the eternal child. While walking, I am but a simple gaze. Moving is what we are meant to do, and only by moving in a natural way can we continue to take these first steps.
Let me tell you a story. Well, first, let's talk about that word, story. What does it mean to you? Does it remind you of being tucked in by mom or dad? Or do you think of the great classics written hundreds of years ago still being read today? Either way, did it feel like you connected to the stories and characters? I made my own story, a graphic novel for this quest. The characters I connected to were the characters I drew. Ever since I was a child, I'd loved to draw and create stories in my head, and with the characters I saw on TV, movies, comic books, and of course, my own characters. I would use my 36-pack of Crayolas and scribble out my world with my favorite characters doing my favorite things. Characters for me were everything. They were my voice. They were my emotions. I felt like I could live my dreams through them. Characters for me became my expression of my inner world. It can be hard to articulate why you love a certain thing, but for me, it may be because art speaks something fundamental to us humans. Even before recorded time, people have been painting and drawing on caves, like here in Indonesia. In South Sulawesi, archaeologists have found a cave painting that is almost 44,000 years old. Let me repeat that, 44,000 years old. That's twice as old as other cave paintings around the world. Just to put that in perspective, the Egyptians were at their peak 5,000 years ago. They also left the earliest evidence of using imagination by painting a hunting scene with a bull and human mixed character. It almost seemed like it came from some kind of story or myth. Even back then, they told stories through art. And it evolved through time, from prehistoric art to medieval art, to Renaissance, to pop art, and on till now. What I'm trying to say is that everyone has a certain art that speaks to them. Mine is the art of a certain somebody, Hayao Miyazaki. That name might ring a few bells. He's also been called the Japanese Walt Disney. But I have to disagree. Sure, Mr. Disney's shorts are great for children, and his animation was revolutionary, but his stories don't have the complexity and depth in them to tell an impactful story to all. But with Miyazaki, I found his worlds and stories to go beyond my expectations. Reality and fantasy seemed to take the same turn. It seemed like he could see the world through magic. The variety of characters was unseen for me at the time. Nausicaa, A Valley of the Wind is one of my favorite movies of his. There were many things I loved about it, like the strange worlds the characters lived in with massive, weird-looking insects and plants that looked out of this world. But what I loved the most were the characters. I especially loved Nausicaa. Her compassion and empathy for the insects, and the way she defended them against all humans, and the way she flew her plane. She kind of became a role model for me. But I never seemed to connect to her. She seemed larger than life. I feel like a lot of kids have gone through what I've gone through with Nausicaa, but in more extreme ways, like not seeing yourself in TV shows, movies, books at all, and thinking you're the only one that has these certain thoughts, feelings, and looks. Think back on your childhood. It's likely that cartoon characters played a big part in your development. Either it was Bugs Bunny and his shenanigans, Snow White and her kindness, or say, for an entire generation, who has been scarred by Mufasa's death. Either way, cartoons have been a big part of your early years' development. But have you ever noticed that for the characters are for the most part the best a human can be, with perfect morals and actions, like Prince Charming, or the worst a person can be, with their only goal is to bring others down and to be selfish, like Ursula from The Little Mermaid? We are, as kids, supposed to look up to these good guys, but they're so perfect and good, it doesn't seem realistic. I wanted to use my passion for art to tell a story with characters that make mistakes, argue, sometimes be petty or selfish, and learn from those mistakes and are still good people, and can give a voice to kids that don't see themselves on screen. I especially wanted to talk about the representation of the LGBT community. I feel that people have made huge strides for positive LGBT representation, but I also feel that children's media is falling behind on that. I mean, ask yourself, think about an LGBT character in an animated movie. I'm assuming you don't have one. I mean, I can't think of anyone. And if you do, is it really for children? But let's talk about media that does have LGBT representation. Most of the time, characters are just added in for the sake of being representation. Other times, if the character is actually in the movie or show, their personality is just their sexuality or gender. Or their sexuality is just a punchline to laugh at. And I'm pretty sure that most people in the LGBT community are not like that. And don't get me started on how many times Disney has used the LGBT community as a publicity stunt. Anyway, let's say children do watch the show with unrealistic LGBT characters. The child would probably create an opinion of that character as unusual or different in a bad way. But I would like to talk further on the history of LGBT representation in the media. It wasn't always like this. It was actually much worse. I learned from an amazing documentary named Celluloid Closet, originally a book published in 1981 by Vito Russo, and then turned into a documentary in 1995. The documentary explores LGBT representation in Hollywood throughout 100 years. They bring in gay and lesbian writers, producers, actors, and actresses, and let them talk about their experiences with being the consumer of that media and also being the ones making that media. They discuss the censorship they went through in 1934 from the Christian church, and also talk about how they managed to get through censorship with queer coding. Queer coding is showing actions or characteristics that might suggest that they're not straight or cisgender, like with stereotypes. Looking back at these examples of queer coding from our vantage point of 2020, it is clear it is a complicated issue. The positive of queer coding is that back then, from the 40s to the 90s, it was a way for people in the LGBT community to see themselves represented. Queer coding doesn't always have to be implied by the writer or the director, though. Like in a lot of superhero movies, there's usually a coming out narrative, like say X-Men, specifically X2, which have a group of adolescents that get their power at that time and are shunned by society and are trying to find their place in the world. Or say Harry Potter, a boy who literally lives in a closet and an older man finds him and brings him to a world where he's accepted for who he is. Queer coding isn't always good, of course. Like, there's a lot of queer coding with Disney villains. Like, Ursula is a good example of this. She was designed after the drag queen Divine. And usually, when you have a villain, people know they're the bad guy, right? So when you queer code a villain, people will interpret the LGBT community as the bad guys. And I've always seen this as a problem. And I've always wanted to help with this issue in some way or form. So I've also put my own LGBT characters in my comic that I feel are realistic and good role models. The main character I have is Samara, a girl who uses magic, has a bit of a short temper, and has a little ghost cat named Minu. Samara also has a best friend named Julian, who likes to play the drums and who at times is quite shy. Samara's co-worker, Oda, who is an elf from Alfheim, the home of the Light Elves, where she lives with her girlfriend. She's a tough person and a good fighter, which is good for Samara. I made the decision to make Oda an explicitly gay character, but to not have this as her defining character feature. And this is accepted by every character without drama. It is my hope that media can continue to move towards positive LGBT representation, and we can reach a time when LGBT characters never have their sexuality treated as their defining characteristic. My story is about Samara trying to keep the Norse world and her use of magic a secret from her friend Julian. But then Julian gets fed up with Samara and the way she always leaves him behind and follows her when she runs off without giving him a reason. Until Julian finds himself in a world where all Norse mythology is real. I have never done a comic on this kind of scale before, so it was very new to me. One of the most challenging things was to create a story that proved my point and came across in a subtle way. It was also quite troublesome to make it an interesting story. This project was also quite exhausting. But this project has also helped me improve a lot of different things, like in-depth research into the topics I'm interested in, and analysis of the media I consume. It's also helped me with the way I tell stories through illustrations And it's also helped me improve in drawing backgrounds and creating character design. Sadly, I couldn't finish my comic in this time. I will complete it and let people read it after Quest. I would like to thank the Quest teachers for helping me start this journey, my parents and friends for helping me stay motivated while working on my story, and thank you to the audience for listening.
The 8th grade Quest capstone presentations are now complete. These semester-long passion projects have been a rich, explorative journey for our students, and the Quest team could not be happier or more proud of the students for having such a strong finish in these challenging times, leaving campus and going virtual. The Quest team would like to thank parents, mentors, teachers, Pac Adrian and the Media Lab for their incredible tech support, and the Green School and the greater community for joining us this week. Another year of outstanding passion projects, inspiring the minds of middle school students for next year. Thanks so much.